Noob School. Welcome back to Noob School. Nate Manning is here today. Nate is a relatively new friend. I know most of these people are my old friends, but we're relatively new friends, and there's a story behind that. We should be old friends by now.
Hindsight's 2020, but from my perspective, absolutely.
I know, absolutely. Well, Nate is a professional enterprise software salesperson, and he's been with just a couple of companies. I know you were with Infor slash DataStream for a while. Slash, what did it turn into?
Hexagon. I think it's Hexagon now, and then was with JDA, which is a supply chain company, retail and manufacturing. NCR, another retail company. And then did about 3.5 years at Salesforce. People probably heard of that. Some of the noobs have heard of that, I'm sure. And then off on my next adventure as of about a week ago with a company called Model N that does revenue management for life sciences companies.
Okay. Well, that'll be good. I assume that's smaller than Salesforce.
It's a little bit smaller than Salesforce. Yeah.
When did Salesforce get started? Do you remember?
Yes, it's about, I think it's 21 or 22 years old, so late 99 probably.
Okay.
A lot of them came from Oracle, and they had this, there's an apartment in San Francisco, you can go see it, that kind of started in the back bedroom of what CRM could be, and also what could be done in the cloud.
Right.
Which, hey, look, DataStream was doing that a long time ago too.
That's true. I just think it's amazing. I mean, and again, this is partly for the noob schoolers out there. You can look at an industry like software, and by 1999 or 2000, there was plenty of really established CRM packages out there. And Microsoft had a very popular one, and Oracle had one.
Onyx,
yeah. And damned if they don't just start a brand new company, and it comes bigger than all that stuff put together.
Oh, yeah. And I think a lot of it, they had a relentless focus on the customer, both not only their customers, but the end customer. It's a B2B sales model. And so the B2B to C, the C part of it, they never lost sight of that too. So as they grew and as they kind of went to market, and even to this day, the customer's really at the center of everything they do.
Yeah.
I think that has a lot to do with the success. And then, from a technology standpoint, they definitely hit the cloud at the right time and kind of.
They did.
If you remember, it's I think back when they don't do it anymore, but it was. I think their number was like 1-800 no software, and their logo was a cloud.
Yeah.
And it was started that.
They were going to eat all the software. They pretty much did. I mean.
Yeah.
That's cool. Well, what a great experience to be with that company and some of the others already. But backing up to the beginning, did you grow up in Greenville?
I grew up in Wilmington, Delaware.
Wilmington.
And I came to Clemson in the fall of 1990, and I've never really left.
So you came specifically to go to Clemson, and how did you pick Clemson?
Well, the funny answer that I tell everybody is that I got in. I applied to a few schools, and Clemson was the one that accepted me. I had a couple of friends from back home that had been in Clemson. Look, it was Southern school, good football team, great weather, great area of the country. So my parents literally put me on a plane in August of 1990, and here I am today.
Yeah. And you had a good experience there.
Had a phenomenal experience. Didn't start. It started out a little rough just because I guess I was on my own and I had some friends here, but not many, and getting used to a little bit of a difference in terms of culturally and different part of the country and all that. But about after a month or two, quickly realized that I could see myself spending the rest of my life
in this
general area.
Wow.
I spent some time in Atlanta, but that's only 2 hours away.
So yeah. So you came to Clemson, and what did you study there?
Marketing.
Marketing.
Yep.
Majored in marketing.
Majored in marketing.
Okay.
And I spent went one extra semester, so I had an extra football season.
That's nice.
for a little tip for all you noobs out there, maybe stretch it out one
Yeah,
semester if you can.
yeah. I would add to that, take a gap year up front, and then take a year abroad, or at least a semester.
So I did. I was very fortunate. My parents, in between my spring semester and my last fall semester, my parents sent me to Europe for about 12 weeks with a Eurail pass, and I just had a backpack and bounced around. I had an aunt and uncle that lived in Paris at the time, so that was kind of my home base. Yeah. But that was, to this day, just an unbelievable opportunity. But I did an internship, so that's another thing that would highly encourage. And that was in, there's a company out of Clemson that owns, at the time it was like 30 or 31. Now it's probably in the 50s or maybe even more, Wendy's restaurants. So Wendy's franchisee. So I interned there in their marketing department. And so got some real world experience there and graduated, spent a couple months waiting tables, and then got my first real job in Greenville, working for a staffing company downtown Greenville.
Okay.
Godshaw. Yeah.
Godshaw.
Still around today. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you were helping place people. Okay. Where's their office?
At the time, it was directly across from the Chamber of Commerce building.
Yeah.
Downtown. Now they moved up the hill to right across from University Square, where all the city county offices are.
Yeah. I thought that's where it was.
Yep.
I thought that's where it was. Okay. And what did you? Well, backing up to Clemson for a second.
Yes.
Were you in a fraternity there?
I was Pike.
I knew it.
Pike
I knew
Kappa
it.
Alpha.
I thought you must have been.
I'm not the first one to sit in this chair.
That's right. That's right. Some similarities to a few others.
Yes. But that another recommendation for people is, and maybe it's not a fraternity or sorority, but getting involved in campus early on really establishes the foundation of your professional network. And that, 30 years ago, I'm still, and even outside of my fraternity, there are still people that I met in different organizations at Clemson that I'm still close to today and rely on for advice or opportunities or whatever, and vice versa. You never, I have a son that's a freshman at Clemson right now, and above all the other pieces of advice that he gets stuck with from me, is, you're starting your network right now. It's great. You're a fraternity. You got your friends from Greenville. That's awesome. But, take opportunities to meet people outside of your current circle and really begin to expand your current circle, because you never know.
You never know. I totally agree. I don't think we ever talked about that before, but I did a horrible job of it at my school. I went to Citadel, and they say you had this great network from the Citadel. In some cases you do, but not if you don't know anybody. I played basketball down there, so my mindset was kind of like, well, I'm just going to try to get through here, play my basketball, and I didn't take the time to go join the other clubs or do the debate club or some of the things that I would definitely do now with a more interested brain than I had then. But I think, you don't have to be the president of the French club, but you can just be in the club and go to every other meeting, and who knows who you might meet.
Absolutely, and to your point, it's a good balance, or it is good to balance it between athletics or social, academics, charitable organizations, things that give back, or an FCA, a religious-based or faith-based. Mix it up as well, and you're never. I don't see how you could ever regret expanding your network, meeting new people from different backgrounds. And really, building relationships like that, because it's very easy to do in college, let me tell you. But when you're out into the real world, in the working world, you've got a bunch of barriers, and whether distance or different companies or whatever that may prevent you from easily going up and creating a relationship or starting a conversation. In college, you're all in the same boat. Right. You're all newly kind of left the nest, and you're kind of apprehensive about what the future holds, and everybody's kind of feeling that. So help each other out and start building your relationships that are going to last really for the rest of your life, and people you can count on, or not even, people that you may only talk to them, as we were saying earlier, once a year.
Yeah.
But
you can call them if you need them.
Yeah, I know. Like I said, Jefferson, I could call Jefferson right now if I need something.
Right.
He would answer the phone.
Right.
But there's some of those people we see once a year at the parties. Those relationships were established, back early on my time at Infor. But even beyond that, you can go back, and especially in college, it's a great opportunity to do it. Yeah. And don't miss the opportunity, because it's really when it's going to be easiest.
It's going to be easiest. It's not coming again. Yeah. That's for sure. And, you never know who you might be able to help. I mean, I'm sure you were a very popular guy on campus, and you're very gregarious and nice guy, but some of these people don't know how to do that. So if you can be kind to everybody, you never know how that might help somebody.
Yep, I totally agree. And even to this day, I had an opportunity at Salesforce to be in the Salesforce mentorship program.
Yeah.
And so that was about 2 years ago. I'm still in regular touch with they call him a mentee, but really it's now my friend.
Yeah.
And then I'm also involved now. Clemson has started a sales innovation. They call it the SIPS, Sales Innovation Program. And so it's essentially an academic track for people that are interested in sales.
Yeah.
They do things like go to competitions, and they go and they do internships and job shadowing and things like that. Yeah. So I just signed on to be a mentor there. So I got this will be my first semester doing that.
Good.
So
Good.
yeah, I mean, I think, like, it's a little bit cliche-ish, but going out and whatever you do to help somebody else out, I firmly believe that comes back to you twofold or more in some way.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not that person that's going to do it.
Yeah.
But you put that out there in the world, it'll come back to you.
And Nate, I would add, again, this is just what I see with my own eyes, but the people who take advantage of that, let's say in college, and they join these groups, and they have a good network on campus, when they graduate, that just continues with the rest of their life. They've already learned how to do it.
Yep.
They've built that muscle, and it's very normal for them to say, I'm going to join Toastmasters now.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to join this, or Rotary Club, or whatever. Whereas the people who are more timid, they're a little bit like, that's kind of a big deal. I'm not sure I want to do that. Who's going to be there? And they kind of talk themselves out of it. So I think another reason it's a good idea.
I totally agree, and I think believe it or not, so I would have considered myself, especially when I started college, more of an introvert. And I think that you can do some kind of self-help. Not that everybody has to be an extrovert at all, but if that is something that you kind of see yourself trying to push yourself to be a little bit more outgoing. Clubs, groups, these opportunities in college are a great opportunity to do that. And by getting involved and by kind of, working towards a common goal with other people, you're just naturally going to kind of come out of your shell a little bit.
Yeah.
And so not only you're helping somebody else out or you're putting your efforts towards a positive outcome, you're also helping yourself become more extroverted, more confident.
Right.
And so
you're practicing.
I'm just can't say enough about starting a network early, building it, and really kind of putting yourself into it.
Well, last thing on the subject for me anyway, but when I graduated from Citadel, this guy won the contest for most well-rounded, cadet or something like that. And he'd played a sport, played baseball, I think, and he was involved in the military, and he did this. He did 4 or 5 things, and I was really kind of disappointed in myself, because all he did was just show up. He wasn't the best at anything. Yeah. He just literally was involved with 4, 5, 6 things. It was a good guy, and I could have done that, but I think I was just I let my head trash make me lazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love your term head trash. You've used it. I've heard it a couple of times. Don't let yourself be the only person stopping you from doing something. I mean, why would you? It's tough. I mean, a lot of people are naturally reluctant around certain things like that. But you make such a great point. Like, why you may be the only person stopping you from achieving something.
Right.
So you take that out of the way because you're in control of it. So go do it. Go get it.
Yeah, go try it.
Yeah.
Go try it. Well, okay. So after Clemson, you waited tables. Where'd you wait tables?
I waited tables at Farmers Hall in Pendleton, South Carolina.
Okay.
It's that place right on the square in Pendleton.
Okay.
Awesome restaurant. It was another great life experience because it was a husband and wife owned it, and the husband was the chef, and just an amazing cook. And I really kind of developed a greater love for food out of being there too.
Yeah.
It was a good experience.
Yeah, I mean, I've never waited tables,
Yeah.
but I hear from people that it's a great sales teacher.
I think everybody should wait tables at least once in their life. It teaches you so many different things. Definitely sales, but it also teaches you humility.
Yeah.
It teaches you how to deal with difficult people.
Yeah.
It teaches you how to. You kind of got to bring your A game no matter what. If you're having a bad day, you can't really let that kind of come out through your service, or else you're not going to get a good tip.
Yeah.
Another big thing I always encourage people to do is go wait tables for a couple months.
I would tell the Noob Schoolers, if they're having a hard time, getting the job of their dreams, maybe they could work, wait tables somewhere that's near the job of their dreams. If the job of their dreams is headquarters at Apple, for example, and you would wait tables there in Cupertino, and just do a great job, you're going to be serving those people who are going to be hiring you, and you won't have to go through the website.
Nope.
Right?
Absolutely.
You meet the right person, they'll say, "Come see me on Tuesday."
Absolutely.
So there's more than one way to skin the cat, but I do think it's a good idea. If you got, if you have the time. You don't have the job of your dreams, waiting tables ain't a bad thing.
So, quick story on that. A couple years into my experience at Infor, they started the program they called it Green Beans, and so it was new college grads coming in and going through some sort of sales training, or a lot of it was just kind of grunt work, looking up contracts and things like that. But one of the first, maybe the first, Green Bean. Still lives in Greenville and still is actually in the Infor ecosystem. His name Alan Howell. He was a waiter somewhere in Polly's or somewhere where the CEO had a house, and he learned how to make his martini. And he would start bringing him his martinis without being asked, and just provided great service. And they started a conversation. Hey, well, I just graduated from college and I'm looking to do that. Gave him his card, and 2 weeks later he's working at Infor.
Yeah. Well. Sometimes that's the way it works.
Absolutely.
I mean, if you can get to the boss, things can happen. Things can happen. They can make decisions. So you learned there, but you were looking for a better job. You got something at Godshaw. How long were you there?
I was at Godshaw for about 5 years, so like 2000.
Okay.
And then had a great time there. It's a great company, great local company in the market. And but I was looking for something a little more fast paced, a little bit. So I moved to Atlanta, and I got a job at what was then Bell South. In the IT group. I'd been placing technical staff at Godshaw for a little while, and said, all right, well, I'm going to try this out. I wasn't a coder or anything, but I went in to be project manager, and gradually kind of worked my way up there, and wound up working on the teams that integrated. If you remember way back then, there was a company called Singular Wireless that with the Bell South and Southwestern Bell SBC turned into, and then ultimately came back to AT&T again, which it is today. But I was on the team that did the integrations of those companies, so I got to see a lot of cool stuff. And I would go into markets, and we would launch new retail stores, or we would launch new call centers, and these are the combined call centers of all these different legacy companies, all their customers into one. So there was billing system conversions and point of sale and inventory conversions, and all of these really software platforms I was dealing a lot with. And we would, I was in my early 30s, and I was doing fine, but vendors would come in and take us out to lunch, or take us to play golf or whatever, and the vendor would come and pick me up in a Porsche or Mercedes, or and I was kind of thinking, what's this guy, what's this woman doing that I'm not doing? And so my head started, probably 2004 or 5 started. I've been there 4 or 5 years, and thinking, I may want to change this up. And you pair that with the people that I knew from the beginning at DataStream,
right.
and the success that they had, and really the only difference is I was starting, 10 years later
Yeah.
than they were. But you're never too old to be a noob.
Yeah,
That's
right.
I think that having the desire and the light switch gets flipped, and you see something else you want to go do, especially if it's sales, go do it. You can be, if you're successful doing X, Y, Z. I'm pretty sure you're going to be successful in sales because it really, more than anything else, it just takes the desire to go and win.
Right. Well, I'll add to that. I mean, you connected things also. You connected you'd been in and around IT as a placement person, staffing person, project manager. You've been all around it. So when you switched over to sales, you had this specific knowledge that was really helpful.
Yep.
The people like Bubba and David, they didn't have that when they started with
That's fair.
They didn't know anything.
No, that's a great point, and that may even give you a leg up and make it an easy as an older noob.
Yeah.
That you're exactly right. I mean, the just life experiences, but also the specific disciplines, whether it's IT or whatever, to go into sales in that.
Yeah.
Absolutely makes it an easier transition.
It does. And by the way, just for the record, I think we would be best friends right now if you'd have started when David and Bubba and those guys started, because we'd have known each other all that time.
Yeah.
And I kind of felt that way when I first met you.
Yeah, and I heard a lot of Sterling stories. So
I was pre-qualified. Yeah. So you started like right after we sold the company.
Yeah, there was still you had gone. I think there were still some. I think Dustin was still there. There were still a few people that were still there, but for the most part, it was Infor. But we still would answer the phone. This is Infor, formerly DataStream.
Well, I tell you what, those people did a good job with the company. I think just overall,
it's amazing. If you look at the roster of people that have been on this podcast and people that are in that kind of universe that have ties back to DataStream, just the talent level and just overall success of that group of I don't know how many hundred people. It's really incredible. And I mean, you take Microsoft or Apple or Salesforce or Google or whatever. I mean, you put that group against any of them, and they would be incredibly successful and hold their own for sure.
I totally agree.
Right here in little old Greenville, South Carolina.
Well, we make some great people. Clemson put out some great people. Wofford, Furman, and Citadel. Citadel. Those 4 schools is where we got most of the talent. But they had to be a little crazy. That's why you fit right in.
There are a few.
So you switched over to sales, straight sales with a software company specifically for better opportunity. And you found it here in Greenville, and you had some friends there. Let's talk for a second before we get into that experience about just interviewing in general. The Noob School folks are always interested in what people can pass along about what they learned about how to interview better, how to get the job, what not to do, what you've seen good and bad in the process.
I think a couple of things. I mean, number one is you may have 5 different interviews lined up. You're not going to be a perfect fit for all 5 of those companies. And so understand that from the beginning. And I think the next step of that is to those 5 companies, of those 5, there's going to be a couple that want you. So have confidence in that. And make sure that you go into an interview, be yourself. Don't try and be someone you're not. Like don't try and put up I'm Mr. Superstar sales. Just go in and be yourself. Maybe you are a superstar sales guy, but go be yourself and sell yourself. I mean, that's really what you're there to do. So, the first deal you're trying to close is that interview. But be confident. Definitely do your research. I think one of the biggest and one of the easiest mistakes and easiest to correct mistakes is going into an interview and not really having a full idea of the company. Go read the 10K, the annual report. Just Google them, and don't Google them. Google them for the news stories. Google them for their competitors. Get a good picture of the company. before you go in, and it's really easy to do. I mean, you don't have to do it for just take an hour and do it. But yeah, have confidence in yourself and know your stuff, and go in there and understand going in. If it doesn't work out, it's not the end of the world.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like it's a lottery ticket. It's like you scratch it off, and either it's there or it's not. It's like as long as you're yourself.
And I also would say have some be prepared to talk about yourself in a way that shows some sort of value or some sort of result. If you're coming out of college, we were talking earlier about the different clubs and organizations and activities. Coming out of college, if you had a leadership role, or even if you didn't, even if you were, you were just a helper, not a leader, talk about some of the successful projects or some of the successful events that you put on. Talk about how much money you raise for charity. Again, very easy to talk about because you live through it, but being able to articulate that and the value or the result that you helped drive, very impactful, and it'll help you stand out.
Yeah. And then when they ask you toward the end, when they say, well, Nate, do you have any questions for me? How many questions is the right amount?
I think probably 3.
That's what I think.
Yeah.
I think it's 3.
Because you don't want to stay there all day.
Yeah.
And maybe you have 5 in your head, but and something during that hour of interviewing will tell you what 3 to ask, or what 3 might be the most popular, or most relevant. So yeah, don't overdo that. But definitely have a couple ready. And I mean, I always, having gone through an interview process very recently, I think one of the easiest ones to ask is, what do you think what makes a successful salesperson at this company in your mind? Mr. Sales Manager, Mr. RVP, Mrs. RVP. What makes a successful salesperson? Can you tell me if there are certain traits that you like to see, or certain habits? And it it really opens them up, because they're responsible for delivering successful salespepeople ultimately. And so, get them talking, and you'll be surprised where that question leads.
Right. Yeah, and if they have no idea, then you might not want to work there. They're just like, well, we just kind of, who knows?
That's another great point. Is it kind of, as I was mentioning earlier, you're not going to get every job, and not every job is for you. But that's a red flag right there. If the manager that's if you're not comfortable and they don't inspire confidence during the interview, I don't know what they're, if you were to get hired there, I don't know how they're going to inspire confidence in the job.
I know. Maybe you can take their job. Never know.
That's true.
And so when you switched over to software, you didn't switch, you're already a salesperson, but you switched to software. What did you learn? What were some of the things you learned about the software business when you ramped up there?
So unlike selling, a car, or selling widgets, selling chemicals, selling whatever, software takes a lot of hands to make it successful, literally and figuratively. I mean, you've got the developers that write it. You've got the business analysts that kind of conceptualize it. You got the developers that write it. You got the quality control people that test it. And then more importantly than all of that, maybe to the customer anyway, is you have the implementation. You have the project that actually implements it. It's not like where, you turn on Microsoft Word and you go to type and you know what you're going to get and you click print and all that stuff, right? Software is a little bit of an open book, clean palette, whatever you want to say. And so you have to kind of look at a sales opportunity holistically, not necessarily beyond just can the software meet the need of the customer. You really have to probe for what that actual need is, and how it's going to fit, and how you can make it fit, and who do you need to involve to make it fit. What kind of partner do you need? What kind of are they going to require customizations and integrations and all that stuff? Without getting too much into the weed, but all that involves a lot of different people and a lot of different hands-on. And so make sure that you go into an opportunity with that understanding. You're not just.
So you learned in software, since it's complex, that you need to organize a larger team of people.
Organize a
make it
larger
happen.
team and leverage them. Absolutely.
Maybe partners, different people in the company.
Yep.
Interesting.
Yeah, your internal network is as important as your external network, meaning your internal people that work in the same company for you, but perform different roles.
Right.
They are just as important as the people that are going to pay you.
Right. And you would think the noobs would think, you say, oh, well, I need this resource, I'll just hit this button.
Yeah.
They're all people, and they're all busy, and they already all have something to do.
Yep.
So Nate's got to call them up and say, hey, Frank, do me a favor. I
Yeah.
need you to go to Philadelphia next week.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And not only that, but you're asking them, and there's 5 other people that might be asking the same question.
Right.
So you better make sure you're good to Frank, and that you're you're nice to him, and you get him the information he needs when he needs it, how he needs it.
Make it easy for him.
Make it easy for him, and
Yeah.
he'll make things easy for you.
Yeah. And then when you get the deal, you got to go to legal. You got to be nice to them to get everything approved.
Listen, I didn't go to law school or sleep at a Holiday Inn Express last night, but I could negotiate a software contract after years and years and years of legal, because they are an incredibly helpful resource, and the more that you learn and the more that you can make things easy on them.
Yeah.
When a customer comes to you and says, well, we want you to completely waive the limitation of liability, just don't even entertain it, because you know it's not going to happen. So don't even go ask the lawyer.
Yeah, they can't do it.
Right.
Yeah, they can't do it.
Yeah.
And so what were some of the differences between, like, Infor is a big, strong software company, and Salesforce is too, even bigger.
Yeah.
What are some of the differences between those two different companies?
I think one thing that Salesforce does in particular really, really well is, as we were just saying, the team that supports you, there are a lot more resources there. And we expect that because of its size, but a lot more resources there. I think if you look at like a Salesforce or a Microsoft, Oracle, SAP, some of the general, we'll call it name recognition, opens doors in and of itself. So that's one of the differences.
Right.
On the other hand, I think one of the things that is the same is a sales process is very similar among all of these large vendors, even small vendors.
Yeah.
You're still ultimately going after a prospect or an opportunity. You still need to learn who they are and what they do. You need to not only match whatever your product is to their need, but more importantly, you need to match it to value. You need to show them, it might save you time, but it's also, it's going to save you, an hour a day per person times, 200 people on your team multiplied by and you come out with a big number at the end.
Yeah.
That's something they can get their head around.
Yeah.
So the sales process and the sales steps and sales cycles are pretty similar, but I think the biggest difference among especially the bigger companies is just the sheer number of resources and
more help.
What's behind it.
Well, here's a question I've gotten from the Noob Schoolers. We've talked to some reps in the past that talked about really big deals. $25 million deal, $100 million deal, $200 million deal. And the question I get, the obvious question is, what do they get paid on that? And so obviously, let's just say you are the manager of the Southeastern team, and you guys are selling a $200 million deal to a obviously monster global company.
Yep.
And there's a big team involved. But
Yep.
you're the manager. Y'all go sell it. How would the commission? First of all, what's the gross commission on $200 million, and how does it get broken out to people?
So I just about all of these companies that we've just mentioned, they'll tell you, they're uncapped commissions, meaning the more you sell, the more you make. There's no limit. Most of them, somewhere in the comp plan, is a concept of a major deal or strategic deal where they will, going into it, if they know it's a $200 million deal, they're going to structure, let's say it was a 10% comp rate,
Yeah.
you're not going to get $20 million if you sell a $200 million deal.
Right.
They kind of structure it during the opportunity, and when you're getting to that point where, hey, this might really happen, typically they'll go through a process and they'll kind of dole out who's going to get what. Now, it's still going to be a significant amount of 7 figures plus in a single check.
Yeah.
And so those kind of numbers are definitely out there, especially at some of the companies, that I mentioned. And it's life-changing. I mean, it really is. It could be, if you're a 35, 40-year-old sales account executive and you close a $200 million or even a $50 million deal, $50 million deal may net you maybe $1 million, $2 million in commission, your kid's education paid for, your house paid for, your life is drastically changed by doing that, and it's an incredible amount of work that goes into it.
Right.
And there's also a lot more hands in the cookie jar.
Right.
But I would say at a deal like that, you typically are going to have a pretty good idea going into it, and don't expect to make 10% of it, but expect to make a nice check.
So roughly speaking, say $100 million.
Yeah.
10%'s a nice normal percent rate for SaaS and software
Yep.
salespeople.
Yep.
So that's 10 million.
Yep.
But if it's going to be a big deal and I own the company, I'd say, hey, Nate, listen, this is going to involve lots of people,
Yeah.
so we can't pay 10%,
Yeah.
but we can pay 3%.
Yeah.
And we're going to pay 7% to somebody, the rest of the team.
Yep.
So, okay, all right, fair enough. If you're going to give me all this help,
Yep.
yeah, because I probably can't win it by myself.
Right. Right.
And so you get $3 million. So I think that's a pretty good answer for the Noob Schoolers is, 10% is the normal rate. If it's a monster deal, let's say over 10 million or so,
Yeah.
that normal number maybe 10 million.
Yeah, 5 to 10 million probably,
Over that,
depending on the company.
We used to call it the Whopper clause.
Yeah, the Whopper clause, big deal clause, whatever. Most of these companies have it in there, and I don't think at all. I mean, noobs that are listening, do not look at that as a negative, because you have to look at that as you just said, look at these people are going to help me get a $100 million deal, and they're going to put $3 million in my pocket.
Right.
I could not make that $3 million if I were, a chemist or whatever.
Well, we had one before your time, but I'm sure it was still going on when you were there with the Miami-Dade people.
Yeah.
And we spent, as business owners, about $1 million before we won that deal.
Yeah.
I mean, literally.
Absolutely.
$500,000 was hard cost on legal,
Yep.
outside legal in Miami.
Yep.
And so, the rep, who was Harrison, he never questioned a bit.
Yeah.
Because he's like, I see what's going on here, but let's. But that's pretty cool. That's still a pretty good way to do it. And you have to be in that business to get those kind of numbers, right? You have to be in the SaaS business. That's why you got into it.
That's why I got into it.
Right.
And I had seen my friends, my acquaintances.
Right.
I had seen, David Poe, had I don't know if he ever closed a Whopper deal, but I know he owned his own house at about 26 years old when we were all, scraping $250 for rent in some crappy apartment. David owned his own house. And so, and then there were others that, had significantly higher returns on closed big deals and stock and all this stuff that you get as you're successful. You can do it when you're 30 years old. I mean, there's nothing. Sales is great because as long as you can, as long as you come across as, not come across, as long as you are, as long as as long as you are genuine, as long as you are, somebody who really inspires confidence and credibility.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you're 30 years old. You can go and sell a $10 million, $20 million, $50 million deal.
You can. And you can bring others with you. Like if you bring your CEO or some significant executive with you, then they're your mouthpiece there for a while. But the other thing I'll tell the noobs is, the better you get at this, the more likely you're going to get the shot at these bigger deals, right? Because the bigger opportunities are kind of given to the people that are hustling more or people that have a better chance to close them. So the longer you're in the game and the better you do, the more chance you have to win those.
100% agree.
Yeah. Man, I need to get a territory again. Sounds like fun.
I remember you talking about the CEO. I remember a deal with that was closed with a large global pharmaceutical company. And it was it was probably $1.5 million, $2 million, I think. Last day of the quarter, deal closed. I believe it was on a Saturday, actually. And then either that Monday or Tuesday, we had an event that was already planned for the sales team. The CEO flew in to present an award to the guy who sold that deal. Because it was a high visibility transaction.
Yeah.
He refused to not let it get done in the quarter. And so, CEO hopped on a...
Was that Shaper?
Yeah, Jim Shaper. Yeah.
He's good dude.
He flew up.
Well, that's cool. It got me all fired up about these big deals. Do you have any advice for a brand new salesperson? Any more advice, I should say?
I think the easiest thing to do when you're starting out, and you got to do it a little tactfully because everybody's busy, but seek input from those around you at the company. Seek input from a very successful sales rep. Seek input from a solution, if we're talking software, seek input from a solution engineer. Their feedback and their kind of lessons learned or best practices really give you a quick kind of blueprint or map of what to do in your early days. Also, when you're starting out with a new company, there's all this administrative stuff that goes with it. Getting a laptop, getting certified on the policies and expense policies and all the HR stuff, and get through that as fast as you can. Don't let that hang you up.
Right.
So get all those boxes checked, and then really don't worry so much don't focus so much on the product as you would focus more on the problem or what's out there in the market today that people may be coming to you for your product. So understand what those pain points are going to be. Dig into the industry, dig into the specific, annual report or 10K, because listen, that's another blueprint. You read a 10K and it says, here's some of the headwinds that we're facing. Dig into those headwinds, understand them, and then, talk to your SE or talk to some, keywords will pop out. And even if you just control F through the 10K, looking for assets or maintenance, to use a data stream. The product will take care of itself and you're going to have help with the product. But what you're going to be expected to do is tie that product to a pain point and tie that product to value. So I wouldn't spend as much time on that as I would your customers in the industry and really learning what they're facing in today's world.
Right. That's great advice. And I'll add to that just a warning that if you go to the wrong people, if you go to the people that are not happy, not making their number, they're going to tell you a completely different game plan. Like comp plan's no good, product's no good. They're going to tell you all the reasons you can't do it because they can't do it. So stay away from the losers party.
And if a conversation starts going that way, just veer off and go ask somebody else, because look, not every person at a company is going to be successful. Not everybody's going to close a $50 million deal.
Right.
And so recognize that for what it is and move on. Don't get bogged down in all that stuff. You're there for a reason, and it's to go sell. And so if somebody says it's hard to sell here, go find somebody that says, it's hard to sell here, but here's how I do it.
Here's how we do it anyway. Yeah. Well, Nate, what's your favorite word?
My favorite word, the one I use, I'm not going to the most. I won't say. Okay. The word I think that kind of covers everything is accountability.
Okay.
You need to be, and you have control over it. That's the best part of it. You need to be accountable to, if you're a faith-based person, you need to be accountable to God. You certainly need to be accountable to your family, your friends, your relationships. And then you're also going to be accountable, and you need to be accountable to whoever's writing you a check. Be that the company you work for or the original check, your customer, who's going to write your company a check.
Right.
And that, like I said, the best thing about being accountable is that you have total control over it. And so if you make that part of your, part of your kind of sales mentality, it will ultimately wind up in you being successful. I firmly believe. I think that's the biggest one.
Accountability. I love that. I love that. And again, some of the people I've seen that weren't as successful, who didn't have accountability, would say things like, I'd say, hey, have we talked to the customer this week? Said, can't get them on the phone this week, or we will send them an email that hadn't responded. I mean, that's not accountable.
No.
Right? You got to find a way.
Yep.
It's not that difficult. So I love that. And then in terms of promoting things, would you like to promote anything in your world right now?
I'm excited to be at Model N, the company I started with last week. Very excited to be there. Great group of people. They have a real impact in the life sciences industry. And then beyond that, I would just say, in wherever you live, whatever you're doing, kind of back to where I was talking about at the beginning, is get involved.
Yeah.
There's always, whether it's Meals on Wheels and you're going to go deliver a meal each week or once a month to a homebound person, or Habitat, or maybe it's something through your church or through your, community, neighborhood, whatever it might be. Take a little extra step and get involved.
Yeah.
And you'll not only get, personal rewards out of it, but, it comes back to you twofold and then some, I really believe.
That's great. Well, thank you for being here today.
It's been an honor. I really appreciate that.
That was delightful. Some great stuff. And you're no noob, man. You're getting it done. You're getting it done. And I only wish we'd have known each other when we should have, right out of school. But we'll make up for lost time.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you, man.
Thank you, John.
Appreciate it.
All right.
All right.